His algorithm is complete. He is just a code monkey anyway. Next week, after the launch, prepare his termination paperwork so I can take his salary for my end-of-year bonus pool. I was holding a lukewarm cup of breakroom coffee when I read those exact words on my paused monitor. I did not throw the mug against the wall. I did not scream. I just slowly set the cup down on a cheap cardboard coaster, noticing how the condensation left a perfect, dark ring on the cheap laminate wood of my desk. If you want to hear how I legally dismantled my boss's career, watched him get humiliated in front of the executive board, and walked away without a scratch, hit subscribe. I am a 34-year-old man, and until recently, I worked as a senior data analyst for a massive corporate technology company. My department director, Greg, is 42. Greg is one of those guys who managed to climb the corporate ladder by speaking entirely in vague business jargon. He does not know how to code. He knows how to wear a tailored suit, steal credit from his subordinates, and play golf with the executive board. For the past 8 months, I had been working 60-hour weeks building a predictive analytics program. I should have seen the signs long before that email. The abuse was not a sudden explosion. It was a slow, agonizing drip of absolute disrespect. It was him forcing me to come into the office on a Sunday morning to explain a basic spreadsheet to him, only for him to leave early to go to a wine tasting. It was him standing in front of the regional vice presidents, clicking through my slides, and claiming my late-night bug patches were done under his strategic guidance. I just sat in the back row and swallowed my anger. I swallowed my pride because, just weeks earlier at my performance review, he had told me I was not leadership material, but that they needed me right where I was in the trenches. I believed if I just pushed this final project out, things would change. But sitting there in the dim light of my cubicle, looking at that paused video frame on my monitor, the reality of my situation finally crushed me. The only reason I even saw that email was because of my own obsessive documentation habit. I always record our remote engineering meetings to write accurate minutes later. That Tuesday evening, the office was mostly empty. I was replaying the afternoon alignment meeting at half speed to transcribe some notes. Greg had been sharing his screen. He meant to switch to a spreadsheet, but he accidentally clicked his email client for about 2 seconds. At normal speed, it was just a blur. At half speed, the text was perfectly legible. I sat there for almost 15 minutes. I did not move. The fluorescent lights overhead hummed a low, irritating buzz. I could not even remember the taste of the coffee I had just been drinking. I just kept rereading the email over and over again, letting the words burn into my brain. Code monkey, termination paperwork, end-of-year bonus pool. I thought back to my very first week on the job almost 3 years ago. Greg had taken me out to a deli across the street. He bought me a $12 turkey sandwich, slapped me on the shoulder and said, "We are a family here. You do the heavy lifting and I will always protect you from the corporate nonsense." I remembered how grateful I felt that day. Now my stomach just churned with a sickening realization. He was never protecting me. He was just fencing in a cow to fatten it up. I wondered, staring at the screen, how many other developers he had already done this to. How many other quiet, hard-working people had he butchered right before a launch to pad his own pockets? The numbness slowly faded, replaced by a cold, heavy exhaustion. I reached for my mouse and clicked the shortcut to activate the screen snipping tool. My dual monitors immediately dimmed, waiting for me to drag the cursor and capture the evidence. Right at that exact second, the heavy glass door to my office swung open. "Hey Mark, where are we on those meeting minutes?" Greg's voice boomed, completely unannounced. My heart essentially stopped. If I clicked the mouse, the screen would flash white and save the image right in front of his face. I panicked. I slapped my left hand down on the escape key to cancel the snip, then frantically dragged my palm across the keyboard shortcut to minimize all windows. I hit it maybe 1/10 of a second before Greg walked around the privacy partition and looked over my shoulder. My screens were completely blank, displaying nothing but the default blue corporate desktop wallpaper. Greg stopped and let out a short, condescending laugh. "Just staring at a blank screen, Mark. Try not to burn out before the launch on Thursday. I need those minutes by 9 in the morning." I bit the inside of my cheek so hard I tasted copper. My hands were shaking violently. I reached out and grabbed my plastic water bottle, gripping it tight enough to dent the plastic just to hide the tremors. "Sure, Greg," I managed to say, my voice sounding incredibly raspy. "Just taking a mental break. Minutes will be in your inbox tonight." He smirked, adjusted his stupid silk tie, and walked out, his leather shoes clicking down the hallway. I waited until the sound completely disappeared. I waited another full minute, listening to my own ragged breathing. Then I pulled the video back up, made sure my door was locked, and took the screenshot. I did not confront him. I did not send an angry email. Instead, I spent the next 2 days setting a completely legal, process-driven trap. I knew that once they fired me, they would revoke my system access. But the program was still in the final testing phase, waiting to be pushed to the live network during Greg's big presentation. I opened the company's internal security compliance manual. On page 47, there is a rarely enforced policy stating that for all major project launches, master control must be handed over to the department director upon final deployment. Nobody ever actually does this because directors like Greg do not know how to manage server access. But it was the written company rule. On Wednesday night, 12 hours before the launch, I executed a script. I systematically removed my own master access to the entire project. I transferred full, exclusive administrative control directly to Greg's user account, exactly as the company manual dictated. Here is where the trap closed. When you transfer ownership on our network, the system automatically generates a one-time cryptographic authorization token. That token is sent directly into the new owner's secure corporate credential vault. Greg had been issued a vault on his first day, but he always complained about the interface and absolutely never bothered to learn how to open it. He had the credential to authorize the launch. He just had no idea where it was or how to access it. I packed up my personal keyboard, my noise-canceling headphones, and the small potted plant on my desk. I put them in a cardboard box, carried the box down the quiet elevator, and put it in the trunk of my car. Thursday morning arrived. The launch was a live, in-person demonstration in the main boardroom. The chief executive officer, the regional vice presidents, and several major clients were sitting around a massive mahogany table. I was not invited, of course. I was sitting at my empty desk, drinking terrible breakroom coffee, watching the server activity on my monitor. At 10:15 in the morning, the logs showed Greg clicking the button to initialize the live data feed. Because it was the first time the system was connecting to the main database, the security software triggered a standard check. It required the master user to authorize the connection using the token stored in their secure vault. My terminal showed the prompt hitting Greg's laptop in the boardroom. A minute passed. The server load remained flat. He was stalling. 2 minutes passed. The system timed out and threw a massive, unhandled exception error right across the giant projector screen in the boardroom. My cell phone vibrated against the wood of my desk. It was a text from Sarah, a coworker in marketing who was sitting in the back of the boardroom. "Dude, Greg is sweating through his suit. What did you do?" Then my desktop computer chimed. My company messaging app started blowing up. 5 messages, 10 messages. The entire engineering department was watching the remote feed, whispering to each other in our private channels as the disaster unfolded. "Is he crying?" One engineer typed. "He literally cannot bypass the vault check, *," another replied. My desk phone rang. It was Greg. I let it ring 4 times before picking up. "Mark," he hissed, his voice tight with sheer panic. I could hear the loud murmur of confused executives in the background. "The system is frozen. It is asking for a vault token. Remote in and bypass it right now." I leaned back in my chair and stared at the acoustic ceiling tiles. "I cannot do that, Greg." "What do you mean you cannot do that? Fix it." "I am just a code monkey," I said, keeping my voice entirely flat. "I transferred master access to your account last night to comply with the security policy. I no longer have access. The system sent the authorization token to your secure vault. You are the only one who can authorize it. I do not know how to open that. Get down here and log in." "I do not have the credentials anymore," I replied. "You do." Suddenly, there was a shift in the background noise over the phone. The murmuring stopped completely. I heard the sharp, commanding voice of the chief executive officer cut through the room. Greg had been so panicked he had completely forgotten to mute his microphone. "Greg," the chief executive officer said, his tone dangerously calm. I am just dealing with a minor technical glitch, sir," Greg stammered. "You stood in my office on Tuesday," the chief executive officer continued, his voice echoing over the phone line. "You told me you built this architecture. You told the board you designed it. I oversaw Did Mark write this program?" The silence that followed was the heaviest, most agonizing silence I have ever heard in my life. It stretched on for 10 seconds, then 20. I could hear Greg's ragged breathing through the receiver. "Greg," the chief executive officer said, his voice dropping an octave. "Explain the vault security check to us, right now. If you built it, you can run it." Total, crushing public humiliation. I quietly placed the receiver back on the cradle. I did not smile. I did not feel like an action hero. I just felt drained. I shut down my computer, grabbed my jacket, and walked out the front doors of the building. The fallout happened rapidly. By noon, Greg was frantically trying to throw me under the bus, sending emails claiming I had sabotaged the company infrastructure. That is when I dropped the receipts. I opened my personal laptop in a coffee shop and sent an email directly to the chief executive officer, the legal department, and the head of human resources. I attached the screenshot of Greg's plan to terminate me and steal my salary. I attached the server logs proving I had simply followed standard security compliance by transferring access to him. I did not add a long, emotional paragraph. I just laid out the facts. Exactly 14 minutes later, my phone buzzed with an email notification. It was a reply from the chief executive officer. "Received. We are reviewing this immediately." That alone felt good, but the real payoff came 20 minutes later. My phone rang. It was not human resources. It was the head of the corporate legal department. "Mark," the lawyer said, his voice completely devoid of emotion, operating in pure damage control mode. "We have received your documentation. We need to get a formal statement from you, and we are asking that you do not forward that email to anyone else outside the company while we conduct a review." They were terrified. An hour after that, the human resources director called me. She sounded incredibly stressed, stumbling over her own words. "Mark," she said, "we have reviewed the evidence. We really value your contributions here. We absolutely do not want to lose you over a misunderstanding." I stared at the black screen of my laptop. A misunderstanding. "We would really like to keep this internal," she continued. "We hope you understand how messy public disclosures can be. We can offer you a title bump and a compensation increase to come back and fix the deployment." They did not care about the betrayal. They just wanted to quiet down the scandal and avoid a hostile work environment lawsuit. "We are done," I told her, my voice heavy with exhaustion. "I am resigning effective immediately. Mail me my final paycheck." I hung up the phone. She did not call back. Greg was quietly let go by the end of the week. He was not escorted out by security in handcuffs. He was just given a quiet severance package and asked to leave through the back door. It has been a few months since I walked out. I am doing some freelance consulting work now, making decent money without having to wear a suffocating collar or listen to corporate buzzwords. Life has settled into a quiet, slightly melancholic routine. I still carry the scar of trusting the wrong people, but I am moving forward. Just last week, I checked my email and saw an automated notification from LinkedIn. It was a network update. Greg had updated his profile. Under his name in bold letters it said, "Open to work." I stared at the notification for a few seconds. I leaned back in my desk chair and looked at the gray sky out my apartment window. I thought about my very first week at that company. We are a family here. You do the heavy lifting and I will always protect you. Then I thought about the text on that paused video player. He is just a code monkey anyway. I looked back at the words "open to work" on my screen. I let out a short, quiet laugh. I moved my mouse and clicked dismiss. Some stories do not need a grand, explosive ending. That one already had it. I closed my laptop, walked into my kitchen, and made myself a fresh cup of tea. For the first time in 3 years, I am finally breathing easy.